Today, we're focusing on the topic of climate justice as part of Warner Media's Earth Month programming and the company's deep commitment to environmental sustainability. My name is Stacey Hoppy, and I'm Vice President of Social Responsibility and Sustainability at Warner Media. And I'm thrilled to welcome two esteemed leaders working in this space to help ensure basic rights for all, including access to clean water, clean air, power, and shelter. First, we have Van Jones. Van is a CNN host, political commentator, Emmy Award-winning producer, New York Times bestselling author, and a successful social entrepreneur who has founded and led many thriving enterprises, including Dream Corps. And next we have Michelle Romero. Michelle is the National Director of Dream Corps for All, where she's leading cutting-edge work at the intersection of the climate crisis, the economy, and racial justice. All right, to start the conversation, let's set the stage a little bit. The climate crisis is one of, if not the most urgent issue facing us today. For those who may be unfamiliar with the term climate justice, what is it and why is it so important to focus on this issue, particularly now?
Climate justice is the idea that when we fix the climate crisis, when we move from a pollution-based economy to a clean and green economy, we should make sure that the people who were hit first and worst by everything bad in the pollution-based economy should not benefit last and least when we transition to the better stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what Green for All works on. We advance solutions to poverty and pollution at the same time so that we can create a world that's green for all, not just green for some.
Climate justice isn't just a problem in the US. Van, how are we seeing this play out on a global scale?
If you think about it, countries and nations that polluted the most got the biggest bang out of this sort of fossil fuel economy. Now, the countries that missed out on that round want to be able to grow their economies. They want to be able to expand. And so the only way you can do that is for the people who have the biggest benefit from the pollution-based economy to be willing to shoulder more of the burden.
Michelle, I'd love to talk a little bit about how this is impacting communities. Would you share some examples of how climate change and environmental policies negatively impact low-income and underrepresented communities?
When I first came into the environmental work, I actually thought as an outsider, from the outside looking in, that environmental work was for white hippie tree huggers. I really didn't see the connection to racial justice until I came to Green for All, which works really at the intersection of the environment, the economy, and race. And I found myself on the ground with Flint mothers who couldn't bathe their children in the bathwater because it was poisoned. And it's because we've devalued their lives that the pollution, the dirtiest sources of emissions are being put into the communities where they live.
COVID, I know, has also, of course, impacted so many of these communities. Van, can you talk a little bit about how the pandemic has affected or amplified climate justice among these communities?
Ironically, the COVID crisis has done a couple of things that may actually wind up being supportive. First of all, suddenly it turns out you can make big changes pretty quickly. People think, well, how are you ever going to go from running a planet based on dirty fossil fuel to something, a planet that's running on solar and wind and clean energy? That's going to take 1,000 years. Well, it turns out if there's an emergency, people can make pretty big changes pretty quickly.
And if there's anything that we've learned about the COVID crisis is that we're only as strong as our most vulnerable. And so if we don't care about the Black and brown lives that are facing environmental injustice today, by the time it is your turn, by the time the pollution is making its way to your neighborhood, by the time climate disaster is making its way to your neighborhood, it'll be too late to do anything.
It's here. And the danger is here, but also all of the solutions are here as well.
So we talked a bit about the communities that climate injustice affects. Van, what are some of the causes that have led to the current state of climate injustice?
In every country in the world, you have some groups that are weak and some groups that are strong. You have some groups that are rich and some groups that are poor. And in every country in the world, it's the weak who bear the burden first. It turns out you can't hurt the planet without hurting people first. If you had a rule or a law that said you could only put toxic waste dumps in rich communities, if you'd only put incinerators in rich communities, if you could only put pollution and smokestacks in rich communities, we would have had a green and clean economy 50 years ago because rich folks would have said, screw this, we're not using this stuff. Use the clean stuff, do it the right way. Make sure you're not hurting children, make sure you're not hurting the water because I've got to drink that water. The social division has made it possible for rich communities and rich people to insulate themselves from the worst impacts.
Climate injustice's impact is huge and is deeply rooted in society and our history. Michelle, can you talk a little bit about what Dream Corps is doing to address the issue?
The Dream Corps Green for All program is working to advance solutions to both poverty and pollution. We're tackling that in the transportation sector through our Fuel Change campaign. And that's an effort to bring electric cars, trucks, and buses to the neighborhoods that need it most. We're doing that through our Safe Homes work to help people stay safer in their homes and bring down the cost of energy bills by doing energy efficiency and low-income home weatherization. The Green for All program is also working with entrepreneurs to help grow Black and brown green businesses. Some of our communities, sure, are closest to the problem, but that also means that they're closest to the solution. And we have a lot of genius and talent that we need to unlock so that we can bring all of the solutions and all of the creative energy to bear on this problem.
I like that they're closest to the solution. It just gives us hope. You're doing also a lot of storytelling work, if I'm correct. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I think that we talk a lot about the data, facts, and figures of the climate crisis, and we don't often hear the stories of the people who are really impacted. Whether you are a farmer facing flooding and drought, whether you are a low-income family in an urban neighborhood, that common pain can be turned into common purpose when we meet each other as human beings and when we start human and stay human, as Van often says.
This is such a layered issue. Van, what gives you hope in this fight for a world that is green for all and not just green for some?
Everything that is good for the climate, everything that's good for the earth is a job. It's a contract. It's an entrepreneurial opportunity. Solar panels don't put themselves up. Buildings don't retrofit themselves and put in their own installation. Organic farms don't plant themselves. Everything that's good for the earth is a job. It's a contract. It's an opportunity for somebody to do better by their families. The idea that it's too big, the fact that it's a big problem is great because it means there's so many jobs and innovations that are available. We should be excited to get out here and do something. And I think we got to have a more look at the opportunity more than we look at the threat.
To close us out, what can we both as individuals and as part of companies and organizations do to create positive and lasting change to address climate justice?
Well, the Dream Corps Green for All is regularly engaging our members of Congress on legislation that you can act on. Visit greenforall.org, and we will get you plugged in to all of our campaigns, whether it's how to bring electric cars, trucks, and buses to your neighborhood, how to fight for struggling families in their homes. We can put you to work helping to build this new future.
There's so many opportunities to buy more ecologically sound products and services. Your supplier chain, how diverse is it? Are you buying from diverse people? Are you buying from green vendors? You can once a week, you could do something that improves your performance when it comes to inclusion, when it comes to the earth, and help more people, help the planet. And all of it adds up. It matters. Every little bit of help makes the future more bright, and we all have that power.
Van, Michelle, thank you so much for taking time today to highlight the important issue of climate justice. It's really energizing to see what both of you and how Dream Corps are addressing this issue and how we can all take part in working towards solutions. Thank you.